Boker Ora Botai, B'Rishut Ma'alat Harav. We continue our study of the Tariq Mitzvot, and today we're up to the Mitzvah 602, and that is the negative commandment in Parashat Ki Tetzeh, that we're not allowed to leave in our homes a faulty scale or weights that are not accurate, whether they are overmarked or undermarked. And the pasuk is Pesukim actually. Lo yeh lecha bekisecha even va'aven gedola uktana. Lo yeh bebetecha efa ve'efa gedola uktana. Even shelema yeh lach. Efa shelema vasedek yeh lach. למען יאריכו ימיך על האדמה אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך, כי תועבת אדוני אלוהיך כל עושה אלה, כל עושה עוול. This is in פרק כ"ה, פסוקים י"ג ט"ט זין. Now the Chidush over here is that even we don't intend to use these faulty scales. You're not allowed to leave them in your house. It's almost like Hametz on Pesach, even though you don't intend to eat it, but you can't have it in your house. And the question is, why not? So the language of the Chinuch is that pen yihiyeh lemokesh, that this might be a trap or a stumbling block. The question is, to who? So according to Harambam, the stumbling block is to other people who don't know that the scale is not calibrated correctly, or it's the people that don't know that the weights are not marked correctly, and unwittingly they might come and use it. From the Chinuch, it sounds like that the Mokesh actually will be to the owner himself, that once he has these things in his house, so it might come that one day he's in a need, or it might be that he forgets himself, and therefore we don't want these things to be in the house because they can cause somebody to use them problematic. The Hadush in the Gemara Baba Batra on that Petet is that even if, let's say, this measuring bowl is used for a derogatory purpose, for example, let's say he's not using it to measure anything anymore. Pardon me, but the Gemara says that he uses it for abit shel meraglayim. He uses it for a urinal. So you might have thought, he's not going to use it anymore for measuring. It doesn't matter. All you have to do is have to clean it, and then they might come to use it for the measuring, and therefore something will be inaccurate. Now, Rambam tells us a chidush over here that even though the pasuk says eben ba'aven, which sounds like it's two things, efa ve'efa, these are measuring. Don't think just because the Torah repeats itself that it's two lavim. Don't think it's lo yeh lecha eben ve'lo yeh lecha eben. It's not two. The Torah sometimes repeats itself even though it's only considered one lav. A person shouldn't say, well, if I have a weight that's not accurate, but it says eben va'aven, so maybe I'm over two isurim. And Rambam's lashon is ki lo behachfel lashonot tarbena hamitzvot. Because of the kefil in lashon will not necessarily cause a additional mitzvah. Finally, this mitzvah applies in all places, at all times, and applies to male and female alike. And now the question is asked, let's say somebody transgresses, and somebody leaves a faulty scale or a faulty weight in his house, he definitely transgresses this lo ta'aseh. The question is, does he get malkut or not? And the Sefer HaChinuch gives two reasons why he does not get malkut. The first reason is obvious, because it's a lav she'en bo ma'aseh. How do you transgress this? By doing nothing, by leaving it in your house. So that's passive. So we have a general rule, lav she'en bo ma'aseh en lokin. But then he says a chidush. ועוד יש לומר שאפילו עבר ושקל בהם לתשלומים ניתן. I'm going to read you his words, then I'm going to offer an explanation. He says, even if you would use the scale, let's say in business, and therefore you cheated somebody, the isur of using the scale and cheating can be reparated. I could pay the guy back. And that's called the lav sheyesh bo tashlumin. any lav that I can reparate by paying, so therefore I'm no malkut. But the question is, what is the Chinuch talking about? We're not talking about over here stealing any money. We're talking about leaving the scale in your house even without using it. Why is he jumping to talk about it? But if I would use it, I would be able to reparate. Who cares? We didn't talk about using it. So the Or Sameach, as well as the Minhat Chinuch here, both say a big hadush. That what's the real underlying reason why you can't keep the scale in your house? It's a fence. It's a siyag. Against what? Using it and cheating somebody. So if the main reason for the mitzvah you would not get malkut on, so you're not going to get malkut on the fence. That means since this is only to protect me coming to use it, and what would happen if I use the scale? I cheated somebody. Would I get malkut? I wouldn't, because I could pay it back. So therefore, since the fence is only to protect something like cheating, and cheating itself, there's no malkut, so you can't say that the siyag is going to be more strict than the actual isur that it's coming to protect. And therefore, since the isur of stealing, using these faulty scales, is laba nitan letashlumin, so siyag also cannot be subject to malkut, because when it's coming to protect, would not be subject to malkut, and the siyag cannot be worse. This reminds us again, Rabotai, how we're not allowed to keep in our homes things that could bring us to isur. Now, maybe none of us have faulty scales or faulty weights. However, one has to be careful of what he brings into his home. He might have faulty literature. He might have faulty books. He might have faulty communication. He might have unfiltered internet. He might have all these. Now there, the sakana is much worse than having a scale that's put in a closet somewhere that's broken that probably nobody will ever come to use. If there's a computer that's unfiltered and there's kids or even adults and a potropos, so that already would be a much, much more greater concern. And even if somebody says, well, we don't use it. Well, the Yetzer Hara today might be lazy, but the next day might be diligent. And therefore, one has to be very, very careful from this mitzvah to make sure what is not only kosher food, but also kosher culture also must be in our homes as well.